Now we're learning why Russell Wilson is interested in Chicago. According to a report, he likes the idea of turning around a historic NFL franchise. He also sees them as an emerging offensive line, a solid offensive-minded coach, and the intriguing market of Chicago. Don't think these quarterbacks aren't looking around the league and seeing what works. When Tom Brady went to Tampa, I was just reading a story this morning. Jason Light, the GM, said it was like he'd been scouting us. He knew our personnel. He knew what we needed. He knew what I wanted. Tom Brady called them and interviewed the Bucs. They didn't interview him. So Peyton Manning to Denver reminds me of Russell to Chicago. Remember when Peyton Manning went to Denver? They were just 8-8 the year before, but squeaked into the playoffs. They had an emerging offensive line, Ryan Clady, a very good young player. They had 2 stars on offense, receivers. What are the Bears? 8-8, made the playoffs. Russell sees them as an emerging offensive line. And they have 2 offensive stars, Tariq Cohen coming off an injury, and the great wide receiving talent, Allen Robinson. They also have a young tight end from Notre Dame I love. So Chicago may sound a little strange. Do you want to go into a division with Aaron Rodgers twice a year? Well, Tom Brady entered a division with the heavily favored Drew Brees and the Saints twice a year. So what you get in common with Tom in Tampa and Peyton Manning in Denver, and if he ever went to Chicago, Russell Wilson with the Bears, is these are not finished products. They see themselves as the missing piece. And there's also 2 things very attractive to Russell Wilson in Chicago. He can go, Mitch Trubisky went 25-13 with Matt Nagy. What am I going to go? And also, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, the head coach and general manager, respectively, in Chicago, are a little bit on the hot seat. They don't have the power of Pete Carroll. And that's one of the things turning off Russell, very much so, in Seattle. Alex Curry with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, the Cardinals boosted their defense by signing J.J. Watt this week, and Coach Cliff Kingsbury is expecting Watt's influence on the team to expand even further than his skills on the field.
I would say J.J. Watt has the type of presence that you don't want to let him down. I mean, you saw, and you've heard some of those quotes come out of Tampa with Tom, and I don't want to be that guy that doesn't hold up their end of the bargain. And J.J. brings a similar presence with all he's accomplished and his work ethic and the type of person he is. And so I do think that can be a big proponent to where we're trying to head this next season.
Now, I like to call this the Tom Brady effect, when you have such a big impact both on and off the field and such a big presence the moment that you walk in the door that everyone around you doesn't want to disappoint you. Everyone around you wants to live up to their expectations. They don't want to let you down. And so having someone like this really sets the tone and sets the mood, not only on the field and in the locker room. And that's just as important as making a good play on the field, is having that good perspective and that good mood around the team.
Well, and also what's happening around the NFL for about 20 years, it felt like a system. New England kept winning the Super Bowl. But then we see Kansas City filled with stars win the Super Bowl, and Tampa this year filled with stars winning the Super Bowl. And you have all these aggressive young general managers, and they know building the duplicate system to New England is virtually impossible without Belichick.
Yeah.
So we go back to what won Super Bowls for most of my life. Pittsburgh had like 6 Hall of Fame players. 49ers, Hall of Fame players. Dallas Cowboys, Hall of Fame players. We forget that New England made us think that, you can just run a system and win narrowly, but what the NFL's like the NBA, and that you generally need 6 or 7. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens won that one Super Bowl. They have Hall of Famers all over their defense. You generally need 5 or 6 Hall of Fame level guys most of my life to win Super Bowls. New England was the exception, where they had the quarterback. He took a pay cut, and they had the deep roster, the roster that had no gigantic hole, the best coach.
And JJ's such a lovable guy. Did you see his ice bath?
I did.
That he did yesterday? He sawed a hole in the lake and just sat in the lake.
I saw that.
Look at that. Yeah, it's up on the screen.
It's interesting. So so he was sitting in this hole in the lake. My takeaway was he sitting on a chair?
Maybe he was in the shallow part.
That's like what is he sitting on?
Or they're floating. Feet.
God.
That just, oh, man.
You could not pay me to do that.
I do like the hot cold, like when you get in like a hot tub, hot shower. It's supposed to be good for recovery, but this, makes me cold just looking at it. Moving on to Deshaun Watson has made it clear he no longer wants to play in Houston, but with the Texans remaining committed to him, this could get messy very quickly. And Jalen Ramsey, who shares an agent with Deshaun, doesn't expect him back down anytime soon. And Ramsey said, I highly doubt he will suit up in a Texans uniform again. He's extremely serious. Now, we know they share the same agent, so he knows a lot that's going on. But when you have other guys around the league supporting the player, talking about this, we heard J.J. Watt say he just wants Deshaun to be happy, and he hopes that he finds his happiness.
He's made enough money, and I'm sure he's been smart with his money, so he can sit out a year. And again, quarterback in the NFL, the quality of coaching, individual coaching, Alex, is so good right now that it's not going to be a guy like, oh, he wasted a year of his career. For him, because he's been banged up a little bit, he'll be the healthiest he's ever been. If he had to sit out a year, he would still be the number one free agent on the market. So he's made a lot of money. Houston's not one of the more expensive places. No state tax in Texas. I'm sure he's got plenty of money. I'll tell you, it's a rare instance where if I was Deshaun Watson, I wouldn't come back. I think the organization now is a mess. Yeah. I think they have a one-and-done coach. I don't think they have good personnel. I can't think of another instance where I supported a star NFL player sitting out and demanding a trade. This is it for me. I
mean, how do you, when he's been so vocal and so strong and saying, I never want to wear this uniform again. I don't want to come back. We're at the point of no return. Yeah. When you're that strong about it, not only to the fans, the coaches, the teammates, it's tough to kind of come back from this, even if he does come back.
It is.
Yeah. All right. Well, we had the All-Star draft last night. LeBron and Kevin Durant drafted their All-Star rosters, and the Utah Jazz have the best record in the league right now, but their two players, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, were the last ones remaining on the board, and LeBron explained why Jazz players were the odd men out.
You guys got to understand, just like in video games growing up, we never played with Utah. Even as great as Karl Malone and John Stockton was, we would have never picked those guys in video games. Never.
I respect his honesty here. And this is a good point as to why big markets matter and big brands matter. You even heard LeBron. He wasn't picking the Jazz when he was growing up. This is why when you go to a big market, you get big endorsements. Growing up, this is why I was drawn to the Lakers. They were flashy. They were winning. They had Kobe. They had Shaq. And it's everything that you want in a team. And we saw it here.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Chris Broussard and I drafted our teams yesterday, and I think the last guy picked was Donovan Mitchell, and I like Donovan, but I picked him because he picked Damian Lillard, and I thought somebody's got to guard Damian Lillard. The reality is the Jazz, and this is not a shot.
No,
the regular season's a treadmill. The postseason's an obstacle course, and Utah is very well built for the regular season, but they do not have an elite wing defender who could beat LeBron James 4 times. So they have a hole, which, by the way, you don't play LeBron back to back in the playoffs. So Utah is your classic, really a great regular season team, but they've got nobody considers them an NBA championship team because they have a hole in their team, which you can't unveil. Mostly because nobody else has LeBron. It reminds me, years ago, the Steve Nash Phoenix Suns. They were a great team, but they really couldn't defend the post. And so in the regular season, Steve Nash comes into town, they're shooting threes, they play 100 miles an hour, and it's just hard to game plan for them. But when you watch them over and over and over and over and can play them night after night after night in a series, you could see how poor they were stopping interior scoring, and that's what San Antonio did against them. So I just think it's one of those things where Utah is a really good team.
Yeah.
They're absolutely capable of winning a couple playoff series, but they don't have a wing